Right, so a ball is thrown up from the top of a building. So we have a building, and a ball is launched from the top of the building up. Eventually, it'll come back down and hit the ground. The building is 128 feet tall. This right here is where the ball is at time 0, at t equals 0. This point right here is when the ball hits the ground. We currently don't know that time. Part A wants to know, after how many seconds does the ball strike the ground? All right, so we're given this equation, S equals 128 plus 112t minus 16t squared. In this equation, t is time in seconds, and S is the distance the ball is from the ground. So S is the height. The height is the distance from the ball from the ground. Notice that if we put a 0 in for t, S will end up equaling 128. Right? Like if I made a little table over here, notice that if we plug 0 in for t, you'll end up getting 128 for S. And that just confirms that at t equals 0, the height of the ball is 128. So part A wants to know, for how many seconds does the ball strike the ground? Well, when the ball hits the ground, it'll be 0 feet high, of course, So asking me when the ball will hit the ground is the same thing as asking me when S will equal 0. It wants to know the time. It wants to know the t value when S will equal 0. So again, asking me when it hits the ground is the same thing as asking me when the height, or S, will equal 0. So to do part A, we're gonna replace S with 0. If I replace S with 0, I have 0 equals 128 plus 112t minus 16t squared. And now we just have to solve this equation. Notice the t squared term is negative 16t squared. So I want that term to be positive. So I'm actually going to move all of the terms to the left-hand side, which changes the sign of all the terms. And I'm putting the terms in order and decreasing powers of t. I've got 0 on one side, so I can begin factoring. We can factor a 16 out of all the terms. 112 divided by 16 is 7. 128 divided by 16 is 8. And so that trinomial will factor into t minus 8 times t plus 1. And so we have t minus 8 equals 0, and t plus 1 equals 0. So t equals 8, and t equals negative 1. Now t represents time. Time can't be negative. So this answer is extraneous to negative 1. So the question of when does the ball hit the ground, the answer is 8 seconds. 8 seconds after the ball is launched, that's when the value of S, or the height of the ball, will equal 0. So this point in time right here is 8. The ball will hit the ground in 8 seconds. And now I'm going to look at part B. Part B actually won't take as long. How many seconds until the ball passes the top of the building? Well, if we look at the picture here, here's the top of the building. If I draw a line, this right here is what they want me to figure out. At what t value will the ball pass the top of the building on its way back down? Well, when the ball passes the top of the building, that means it's going to be 128. So asking me when the ball will pass the top of the building on its way back down is the same thing as asking me when will it be 128 feet high. So now we're going to replace S with 128. So doing so gives me 128 equals 128 plus 112t minus 16t squared. We could subtract 128 from both sides. And so these 128s just cancel out. and I'm left with 0 equals 112t minus 16t squared. And I can factor out a GCF of 16t, leaving me with 7 minus t. And so we have 16t equals 0, and we have 7 minus t equals 0. Dividing both sides by 16 gives me t equals 0. And over here, if we move the negative t to the other side, I get 7. And t equals 0 is, of course, that's when s equals 128, but that's the start of the ball's journey. So after 7 seconds, that's when the ball will pass the top of the building on its way back down. And after another second, at 8 seconds, the ball will hit the ground.